Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
DSP.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Am I audible, Shikhar Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Okay, sorry, there was some technical glitch. Anyways, the system had to be restarted and still is not working to its best performance, but we'll start our program. So thank you all for joining. Can I have the co-host, please? We'll start with the program. Thank you all for joining in on Monday evening. Happy to see you all returning back for the program. And Hare Krishna. We'll start with our today's session.
Prabhuji will not able to see you.
Yeah, that's the whole issue with the camera.
Okay. Okay. But slides visible, right?
Yeah, slides will be visible.
Okay.
Hopefully. So we'll start right away. I hope the slide is visible now. Okay, great.
Yes.
So thank you all for joining in for this program. We'll begin our program with a small prayer. All of you can join along to recite the prayer. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatai Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we welcome you all for the second topic of Gita Wisdom. And the topic for today is Are Vedas or Are Vedas Mythology? However, before we get into the subject matter, a very quick recap because we already lost almost 10 minutes to start our session. So what we have discussed until now in the first topic title is Does God Exist? There we had presented a logical and scientific evidences for the existence of the Lord. There in that session, we had also discussed about the two prominent challenges which people put forward where they question the existence of the Lord. And the challenges are like, can you show me God? And second challenge or second question which people put forward, who created God? We had addressed those two questions also. Can you show me God? Who created God? And thereafter, we discussed about how to gain knowledge about the Lord. And we discussed the reasons, unless we have proper knowledge, our faith on Supreme Lord keeps on wavering. I gave 4 reasons in the first session why people put faith in Lord, although people have not studied, have not got any education about Lord, have not read any religious scriptures. Along with this, we also discussed when it comes to acquiring knowledge, there are 3 ways of acquiring knowledge: Shabda Praman, Pratyaksha Praman, and Anuman Praman. When it comes to Pratyaksha and Anuman Praman, there are 4 inherent defects. The acronym is MINC, because of which we individuals, every living entity on their own ability and strength, cannot understand the supreme absolute truth. So then how do we understand the knowledge which is beyond time and space is only possible through Shabda Praman. Just like how does a son or daughter knows who's his father? They go and approach their mother and ask. That's it, as simple as possible. Along with this, we also discussed about 3 fundamental questions. Who created this creation? Who is the cause of all these life forms? And how did this evolution happen? How did this living entity came into existence? We presented what the science talks about, and we also presented what Bhagavad Gita speaks on that regard. And finally, we had given the definition of God. What does God means to be? God means he's a supreme CEO, supreme controller, enjoyer, and proprietor. That is the meaning of the word God. And today's session, we're going to talk about now, to begin with our today's topic, are Vedas mythology? Hare Krishna. Just a quick second. Is it working now?
Yes, Prabhu, we are able to see this slide, our Vedas mythology.
Okay, great. Just one second. Hare Krishna. Yes, so today's subject matter, which I consider to be very interesting subject matter, will speak about the historical context of how Vedas were given the name or given the tag of mythology tomorrow, not today, but just to give you a little brief about it. It is explained, as we all know, this Bharat, the land of Dharma, had been in foreign rule for a long, long time. Somewhere around 700 to 800 years, Muslim rulers ruled this nation, and thereafter, for a short while, Marathas came into power, but that didn't last for long. And then again, India went under the subjugation of Britishers. When the rule of both the Muslims and the British is compared, it is described that the Muslims did not cause as much damage, as much havoc to our civilization as Britishers caused in less than 150 years. Well, what's the point here? Because at least during that time, the dharma was allowed to be practiced. Our education system, Gurukul, was allowed to be practiced. People had faith in Vedic scriptures and things like that. However, when Britishers came to rule, they first of all stopped our traditional educational system, which is called as Gurukul. They definitely hijacked our whole industry, and our GDP went down the drain and all that. And along with that, it's the Britishers who brought out this terminology of mythology towards Vedas. It is they who tagged Vedic scriptures to be mythology, and they did all their best to destroy the faith of the natives of this land, to lose their faith in the Vedic scriptures and the Vedic culture, because of which today many people at their home have Bhagavad Gita, but it is kept on the altar. People consider it to be sacred, fortunately, which is good, wonderful, but nobody has time or interest to read it, which until some time years ago, I remember when I was growing up, when I was going to school, in our school, in those days, Ramayana and Mahabharata, value-based education was given based on Mahabharata and Ramayana. Did you remember, any one of you, at your time when you were young? But now there is no Ramayana Mahabharata discussions at all. So anyone who graduates in today's day and time, by default, they consider this whole Vedic scriptures to be mythology. Before we get into establishing this Vedic scripture, is it mythology or a fact? Let's look into something which is very relevant to all of us as an individual. According to statistics, it is said there are almost 7.2 billion people in this world. And there is one common thing, regardless of so many differences of opinions and faiths and social status, there is one thing that unites all this 7 billion people together. And what is that one thing that unites all of us together? And that one thing is search for happiness. Every living entity, I'm focusing on human being right now, is searching for happiness. Every endeavor of us, of every individual, is inspired or is governed by the need to seek or sort out this happiness. However, this is not only true for the humans, the same idea, or in other words, this all our desires, for all our desires, the baseline is happiness. Similarly, or even for the animals. In fact, the same desire for happiness manifests in animals also, and among all species of life. So that's not unique to only us. So which brings about a discussion. Well, if the humans are searching for happiness, looking for happiness, the animals are looking for happiness, can we quickly talk about what are the commonalities? There's a very interesting verse that comes in Mahabharata, which I'm going to quote in a short while. But before that, what are the commonalities between the humans and animals? So there are 4 commonalities which are described. We're given an acronym for all of you to remember easily, and the acronym is SEED. SEED. Where S stands for sleep. Who doesn't like to sleep? And that's not the whole point, but the point is the human sleeps, the animal sleeps. The only difference between humans and animals and in their act of sleeping is the animal may fall on the road and sleep, whereas a human may search out or may purchase an expensive bed. Recently, one of the students was telling me one of the Indian agency, the security agency, raided one of the government official house. This government official was working in Orissa, and they found out his bed was worth 60 lakh rupees. His bed, okay, where he would sleep was worth 60 lakh rupees. I believe many people would not even have an apartment of that much amount, where this government official had the house. So some people may sleep on an expensive bed, and whereas a dog or any other animal or a cow may sleep on a bare land. But the act of sleep is there among both. E stands for eating. So much effort, so much endeavor, so many styles of cuisine, so many varieties of food, items, and who doesn't like to eat? People love to eat. I come from Delhi, and Delhi is said to be a place where people love to eat. There are many, many eat outs, and I believe that could be true for many places. Right now I'm in Pune, and in Bombay, I believe there are some food items which are especially very famous. Bada pav, Bombay's bada pav and whatnot. Anyways, the point is, so much effort is put forward. You go out, you have restaurants, hotels, and whatnot. When it comes to animals, they also eat. They don't put so much effort into this direction. The nature, the large nature provide for them, they eat it and they go on with the life. But that's a commonality. E, the second or second E or the third letter in this acronym, E stands for enjoyment. The highest level of enjoyment which everyone seeks out in this world is said to be an act of copulation. Now, this act of copulation is there in the animal kingdom, is also there in the, amongst the humans. When it comes for animals, there are seasons where they come and mate, and that's it, and they move on with their life. However, for humans, how much arrangements they do for the act of copulation. And it's not only limited to the act of mating, but enjoyment, they try to explore and create avenues and opportunities to enjoy in different forms. Your recreation centers, to the shopping mall, to the amphitheater, to the retreat centers and whatnot, they all are meant. In other words, so much amount of human energy is invested just to give us these basic facilities, which animals get it by default without making additional endeavor. And then D for defense, the Lord has provided animals, every animal, a special ability to defend and protect oneself. Similarly, humans, in human society, you get life insurance policy, uh, you know, health insurance, and then you have the nation, the country spending tremendous amount of energy and the wealth to create security infrastructure. If you're using a laptop, you probably have a parental control or the firewall. So much amount of endeavors put forward in all these directions. The point I'm making is these four things, which is called as ahar, nidra, bhaya, maithunam in Sanskrit, is common between humans and animals. The difference is the animals get it naturally, whereas the humans are putting so much energy, endeavor, their life's energy is invested in creating these facilities. But the question is, are humans really happy despite having the far better facilities of enjoyment, of sleeping, of eating, and defending oneself? I believe everyone would agree here. Nobody has ever seen or heard a news that some monkey or some dog or some donkey hanged himself from a tree and committed suicide. Yes or no? आज की ताजा खबर, फलाना ठिकाना सोसाइटी के कोने में एक बंदर पेड़ से फांसी लगा के लटक गया. There's no news piece that comes like this. But unfortunately, in the human society, according to one survey, the suicide rates have tripled in the last 25 years. Just an example comes to my mind. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's almost a decade before. And I had along with one of my American friend, had gone there. We were outside the shopping mall. He had just gone to get something from the store there. And there was a store, another store nearby, and it said, Dogs Psychiatric Clinic. Dogs, DOG-S, Dogs Psychiatric Clinic. And I was quite amazed, rather amused. What does it mean to have Dog Psychiatric Clinic? Now, if you know of the surnames in the West, many people have surname as Doug, D-O-U-G, and they will have like Doug Health Center. So I thought maybe somebody's name is Dog, and he's having a psychiatric clinic after his name. So when the friend of mine came out, an interesting thing was, when I looked at towards that clinic, there were a lot of dogs there. There were people, everyone was carrying a dog. So that increased my suspicion. When a friend of mine came back, I said, hey, what is this, Dog Psychiatric Clinic? And interestingly, everyone who's entering into that clinic is carrying a dog along with him. What's so special about this clinic? He said, looks like you got confused. This is not a clinic meant for human treatment. This is a clinic meant for the treatment of dogs. I said, dogs are having mental problem? Why? He said, because of too much association of humans. I'm not joking. You can search for this psychiatric clinic. So anyways, let's move forward. So if you see in basic desires, we all are same with animals. So question comes, what is the difference between humans and animals? Yes, there is indeed a difference. And that difference, we can put it in an acronym form as A, B, C, D. What does this A, B, C, D represents or indicates? Where A stands for ability to inquire. All of you are probably familiar with the life story of Gautam Buddha or Siddharth, the Prince Siddharth, how his father tried his best that his son never ever gets exposed to any kind of suffering. Because when Siddharth was born, when his chart was made, it was foretold that, oh dear king, your son, your only son, who was born with such a great endeavor and effort, after so many years, the priest said, your son would take sannyas, would renounce. The king could not tolerate it. And he created an artificial environment in such a way that Siddharth would ever, never see any kind of suffering. However, for how long you can protect and prevent the truth. Finally, one day, Siddharth got a chance when he grew up to escape out of the control of his father, and along with his great dear friend, who was his charioteer, he went out into the city. And he came out to the city for the first time. He saw an old man. Siddharth had never seen an old man. When he asked his charioteer, why this person looks so frail and weak? And the friend said, the charioteer said, my dear Siddharth, this is called an old person. You and I one day would definitely become old like him. Siddharth was surprised. They went further, and now Siddharth saw somebody coughing very, strongly and rapidly. Siddharth asked, "What happened to this person?" And the charioteer said, "Siddharth, this person has got disease. He's suffering from so and so disease." Siddharth said, "What is disease?" And the man said, the charioteer said, Siddharth, all of us at certain time in our life get afflicted by certain diseases as unavoidable. And finally, Siddharth heard the sound of Ram Nam Satya Hai, Ram Nam Satya Hai. And then Siddharth asked the charioteer, what's going on? Why there is a man on the shoulder of everyone and they're shouting Ram Nam Satya? Why this man is covered with a blanket? And then the charioteer said, Siddharth, this is your and mine destination also. Someday in future, people are going to say the same thing for you and I. This is called as death. And Siddharth was shocked. Really? I also have to undergo all this suffering? And this led to the birth of Buddha, who we know in the whole world as an enlightened sage. And that's the whole point. Ability to inquire is the gift to the human life. And if you don't inquire, if you don't search out to the higher levels of happiness, then our life is wasted. That brings us to B. B means bliss. So what we discuss about sleeping, eating, enjoying, and defense is a one level of happiness. There are three other levels of happiness, which I'll speak in a short while. So the humans, our human life is meant to explore and access higher levels of happiness, which animal world, animal kingdom does not have access to. C refers to choices. Like it is said, between a stimuli and a response lies our freedom to success, lies our freedom or lies our opportunity to success and freedom. Stimuli and response, between it comes a choice. How do we respond? And that choice is given to us. Why? Because animals act on instinct. What they feel, what they want to do, they act on it. But humans are given or provided with higher intelligence that allows them to act accordingly. Just like you go to a restaurant and a waiter comes and asks you, sir, what would you like? Would you like sweet? Would you like hot, cold? Would you like a starter, main course? Then there is a sweet, then there is a drink. So they ask you for varieties and then you make an option. You never ask this to a cow or to a dog, you want ghas or mas? You know, what they eat, they eat. And it's not that only your dog eats a vegetarian diet and other dogs eat something else. Unlike in a human race, every people eat different things. What to speak of what people eat in China? God only knows what they all eat. You know, it is said whatever flies, whatever crawls, whatever swims, everything goes into the belly of Chinese people. You know, so now you can cover all the 8.4 million species that way. So choice is given to humans, and finally, D is determination. Determination for what? To do the things that we just discussed. Determination to inquire, determination to seek out higher levels of happiness, and determination to make the rest or make the right and the best choices in one's life. So that brings us to the discussion of what are the four levels of happiness that I just introduced. Happiness lies at four levels. Sweet boy, isn't it? To make your day a special day. So first level of happiness is at what we call as B. B refers to happiness at bodily level, where we try to enjoy through our senses, through the act of sleeping, through the act of copulation, through eating, and through trying to defend. This is all pleasures of the bodily level. Now, are these pleasures forever? Are these pleasures eternal? Are these pleasures ever increasing? Not at all. Bodily pleasures, whatever, whichever things you want in your life, you get it, but the pleasure reduces in the taste. Simple example, let's say you have been hankering to eat your favorite sweet. Let's assume that to be gulab jamun. When you got given the very first piece of gulab jamun, you feel like you know, in the sky, a great happiness is there. Let's you get another piece of a gulab jamun, you're happy. Like that, you're given 10 and 12 pieces. After that, you will say enough is enough. So the pleasure is not ever increasing. Pleasure has reduced now. Now the time would be that you will say, if I eat even a single more gulab jamun, I probably would vomit out. Second thing, what's the problem with the bodily pleasure? Unfortunately, our whole civilization today focuses only on the bodily pleasure. And the problem with the bodily pleasure is, as we grow old, our senses become weak. We cannot see far and wide. We cannot smell that well. We cannot taste every kind of food because our stomach would not allow us to digest. Similarly, our ability to hear goes down. Therefore, the bodily pleasure reduces. And lastly, the problem with the bodily pleasure alone is that resources are limited. If and only if the resources were unlimited, and if and only if your senses would have remained as strong as you were young forever, then bodily pleasure is all good. But despite these three flaws, because our whole civilization today focuses only on bodily pleasure, that's the reason there's so much frustration, so much increased rates of, maybe you say, divorces, terrorism, and whatnot. Higher this bodily pleasure is what we call as emotional pleasure, where E stands for emotion, which means a satisfaction at the mind level, which comes by having relationships. Imagine you meet your friend after many, many years. How many of you would have an experience when you met your friend or a relative after a long time, and when you met him or her, you went on speaking to your friend for a night, probably for a day. You did not feel hungry or even thirsty. Yes or no? We all have that experience. Now, because you're able to transcend your bodily needs, which means emotional pressure is far greater and far high. That's the meaning of emotional pleasure. And then higher than emotional pressure, which means it comes from having a good relationship. That is what means by emotional pleasure. To give you a contrary example, you may have the best of facilities, you may have best of the resources available to you, best of the food to dine on. However, if your mind is agitated, how many of you agree, say yes or no, if chat box is allowed? How many of you, what I mean to say is, if your mind is disturbed, there is a lot of stress and anxiety, even if you have the best of the facilities, how many of you think you cannot really enjoy? Yes or no? If answer is yes, which means bodily pleasure, the satisfaction on the body level depends a lot on our emotional pleasure or satisfaction. Let's go what is higher than emotional pleasure. Is I stands for intellectual pleasure. Classic example is APJ Abdul Kalam, which all of us are aware of. So a reporter asked him, so why didn't you got married? And he said, well, when I entered the lab, I was 21-year-old. When I came out, I was 71-year-old. When I came out, I realized there's no more time to get married. I was old already. Which means Abdul Kalam being so absorbed in creative thinking and activity, an act of problem solving, which is at the level of intelligence, he could even transcend the need of emotional pleasure. Is that making sense? You're getting the point? That's the whole thing. Here, forget about transcending the bodily needs and the pleasure. He's able to transcend the need of the emotional pleasure also, which definitely means that intellectual pleasure is higher than emotional pleasure. And the highest of all, because either be bodily, emotional, or intellectual pleasure, they're not forever. After a while, it reduces in their relish and taste. Higher than all this thing, the highest pleasure, which Lord Shri Krishna introduces in Bhagavad Gita and tells Arjuna, this is what should be your aim of human form of life, is spiritual pleasure. The pleasure which happens or which one experiences when one is able to develop or revive his lost relationship with the Supreme Lord, which is ever fresh, ever increasing, ever growing, and unending. And there are many examples, if you look into the history, where people gave up on the bodily pleasure, emotional pleasure, intellectual pleasure, and completely absorbed oneself in the spiritual pleasure, wherein they renounced everything because they were so much blissed out in their spiritual life. Classic example, which everyone is aware of, is Mirabai, a daughter of a king. I believe she was also married to a prince. She left everything and dedicated her life. She became a yogini, a sannyasin, a mendicant, wandering mendicant. And she took to this whole spiritual life with such an utmost seriousness, which definitely indicates the spiritual pleasure is far greater than any pleasure. And it is not that she decided to go back, she continued. We have examples of Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami. They were the home minister and the finance minister under the rule of Nawab Hussain Shah. They were the richest people in the whole of the state, yet they gave up everything and they became a wandering saints in Vrindavan. Like that, there are many, many examples, which factually tells us spiritual pleasure is the highest. Not only Krishna speaking, we have living examples of that. That's the point here. And this is what is the goal of human form of life, is to access unlimited spiritual bliss. So question comes, what makes human beings superior to animal? And Mahabharata says, Ahara nitra bhayamaithunam cha samanyametat pashubhir narana dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nahina pashubhi samanaha. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maitunam are the four common things between humans and animals. However, what is a particular thing that is only accessible to human is the practice of dharma. Dharma means to understand who am I, what is the purpose of human form of life, and how I'm supposed to lead my life or live my life. And one who does not understand what dharma is, Mahabharata says, Dharme nahina pashubhi samanaha. Very straightforward, all of you would have understood. That person is compared or considered to be equal to animal. Agree or disagree, if you look around, unfortunately, the today's civilization, society, education system only promulgates or only propagates the idea or only advertises that the highest pleasure, the pleasure of life, is only improving the conditions of one's ahara, nidra, bhayam, metanam, and nothing else. If that's what we have been absorbed into, then according to Mahabharata, we are no better than an animal in that case. Well, you might wonder what's the problem? Yes, Western countries have made tremendous material advancement. We have luxurious cars, we have skyscraper building, latest methods of communication. My question to all of you here, please say what you think about it. Do you find today's generation more happier than the previous generation? Was the previous generation more content, happy, had a happy life, peaceful life than the today's generation, or is today's generation more happy? If you think today's generation is more happy, write today's generation. And if you think the previous generation was more happy and better, write down previous generation. And when I see you on your chat box, all of you, it was very clear, all of you understand it was previous generation. The amount of crime rates, the amount of dissatisfaction in the family life, the conflict between the son and the father, the daughter and the mother, and all the problems that we face today, the amount of suicides, the amount of criminal acts were never ever there before. I'm just not making up things. These are statistics which you can find online for yourself. So what does this whole technological advancement have given us? Because the promise of this whole technological and scientific advancement was improved living condition. What is this improved living condition all about? Well, this improved living condition means that the technology have provided us better facility or superior luxuries for better sleeping, better eating, better enjoying, and better defending. That's all. And this is all restricted to what? This is all restricted to bodily pleasure. People have no idea about how to, build relationship, sustain relationship, have no taste for intellectual pleasure, and spiritual pleasure is not discussed only. People have no idea about it. Therefore, today, people are frustrated, dissatisfied, full of anxiety, stressed, and are under depression. Dalai Lama was asked, "What's the most strange thing?" And Dalai Lama said, "The strangest thing that I've seen is people work hard day and night, continue to work, and one day they fall sick. And when they fall sick, they spend all their earned wealth in recovering. And when they recover, they come out of the hospital and they continue to work hard day and night. And the most amazing and the strangest thing is they never ever got an opportunity to use the wealth that they earned to become happy, to enjoy life. Life is meant to enjoy, but they could never ever enjoy their life. That's the whole point about it. So, if technological advancement was all good, then our living conditions, there should have been far greater peace, happiness, less rates of divorces, less rates of crimes. You all know about all kinds of things that are going on in the world today. So, what is the purpose of this human intelligence, which is there? The intelligence is the predominant distinguishing feature between the humans and the animal kingdom. And the purpose of the human intelligence is to find out the cause of sufferings, to inquire the purpose of life, to harmonize our life with God and nature, and to attain eternal happiness. If we don't use our intelligence for its purpose, for our spiritual upliftment, then what happens? When we don't use our human intelligence for this, then we continue to face challenges in life. So one of the very foremost thing, the purpose of human intelligence should be utilized is to inquire, why am I suffering? I would like to bring out some very important points here that Bhagavad Gita brings out. And let's see if all of you agree with this or not, what Bhagavad Gita says. Now, Bhagavad Gita describes, the Lord Shri Krishna describes that every living entity in this world are faced with a real problem. And Krishna defines what is the definition also of a real problem. What is the definition of real problem? Is CNN. Not the CNN news channel. Of course, news channels are big-headed these days, but still I have nothing to against CNN. So CNN refers to C, refers to common to all, and refers to nobody wants it, and the last N refers nobody can avoid it. So, Hare Krishna. Okay. I hope the session is going fine. I saw some message saying we cannot see the video. Anyways, let's continue. So, is there anyone who can tell me what are such problems which are common to all, nobody can avoid it, nobody wants it? What is that problem? Yes, death, correct. Birth, correct. What else? Old age, aging. Yes, the problems, as you all have discussed, is what Krishna describes in verse chapter number 13, verse number 8 to 12, where Krishna says, one who can perceive birth, death, old age, and disease as real problems is in knowledge. And we all have to undergo all these problems regardless of religion, race, and gender. Yes or no? That's the whole point here. Not only this, Krishna says, apart from these four problems, there are threefold miseries also. There are 7 problems that Krishna defines in Bhagavad Gita. And these threefold miseries are as follows. The first Adhyatmika Klesha. Adhyatmika Klesh, which refers to the sufferings because of one's own mind and body. According to the statistics, 1 out of 5 children have stress related emotional disorders. 40% teenage students admit to severe anxieties. And as I said, the suicide rates is almost doubling and tripling as we are moving forward. So, problem because of one's own mind and body is called as Adhyatmika Klesh. Then we have Adhibhautika Klesh because of living entities, other living entities. And a simple example, mosquito biting. You know, the bite of a mosquito itself is a painful experience. What to speak about the clashes and conflicts that we have with other living entities. And the third, Adhidaivika Klesha. Adhidaivika refers to the natural calamities, just like the windstorm, thunderstorm, or the floods, even the hot weather, the cold weather. All of us have experienced these kind of kleshas. And like this, Lord Shri Krishna describes 7 sufferings that every living entity has to undergo. So the point is, yes, our medical science in medical field, we have made great advancement and we have the latest and the best of technology. Can the science liberate us or protect us from these kind of 7 sufferings that every one of us have to undergo? Science and technology cannot stop old age, cannot eradicate disease entirely, and they hardly have any understanding of life and death. You may say, no, Prabhuji, they have made a lot of solutions. Yes, they have got scientific solution. Let's see. When a person grows old, gets gray hair or white hair, what is the solution the science have? Godrej hair dye. Instant black color hairs. So they give you a Godrej hair dye. The wrinkles on face, there is a cream to, for the facelift and whatnot. Is there the back pain, stomach pain? There are painkillers. But you all know this is all temporary relief. It does not freeze you or liberates you from all these challenges. So Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna and Bhagavad Gita very logically and scientifically introduces us to this problem and also gives us a solution by explaining that, hey Arjuna, you and I, every living entity, are eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Because you have fallen into a state of forgetfulness, you are not able to understand your eternal nature. And because of lack of knowledge, you are suffering today. How do we understand this? I'll give a very small example and you will understand it. In other words, Bhagavad Gita educates us about the 7 real problems of life and also gives a solution to overcome it. Before I give you the example to help you understand this, do you all agree what Bhagavad Gita says is a fact when Bhagavad Gita talks about the 7 real life problems? Is common, nobody wants it and nobody can avoid it. And not only amongst human race, is also amongst the animal species, any living form. It's not a subject matter restricted to Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs. By the way, for your information, tomorrow we'll discuss more history. But when Krishna spoke to Arjuna, there was nothing called as Muslim, Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and what all faith and religion we know of today. So what is the solution that Krishna gives? And the solution is to revive our loving relationship with the Lord. Let me give you a simple example. For a second, imagine you are a dear friend of Ratan Tata. It's just an example, okay? Don't take it too seriously. So example, imagine you are a dear friend of Ratan Tata and Ratan Tata had lost his son, a young son, who he tried to search all over the world but could not find him. One day you're driving in your city and you come across, there's a traffic signal, you stop your car, and suddenly there's a knock on your window pane of your car. You look who is knocking, and we look, there is a beggar, a young boy, asking for some charity or some money. And when you look closely at that boy, suddenly you realize, oh my goodness, he is the son of Ratan Tata, my dear friend who had been longing for him. What is he doing here? There are multiple things that you can do at that point of time. I'll give you 3 options, A, B, and C. Please reply, what do you think is the best thing to be done if you would be in that situation? A, Let's say you generally give 5 rupees or 10 rupees to a beggar, but now because he's a known beggar to you, I mean to say he's a son of your friend. So that way this person is known to you, becomes a known beggar. So you, out of your courtesy and gratitude to your friendship, you decide to give him 1,000 rupees, right? Isn't it? Looks like I've done a big charity, you walk away. I mean, you drive away. That's the option A. Option B, this is a classic example of Srila Prabhupada which he gives. Option B, you think, oh, he's the son of my dear friend. I should provide him proper clothing, proper food, shelter, and education so that he can become educated and he can take care of himself. Why he has to be in such a pitiable condition? Sounds good? Better option, B. And the third and the C option is you tell the boy, come and sit in the car. Your father is the richest person in this world. Let me take you back to the father. Once you're back with your father, you would never ever have to face any problem in your life, isn't it? You probably even don't have to work. You're the son of the richest father, richest person in this whole world. And as you all say, yes, the best is C, where you reunite the son with his father. It's not only about the physical well being, but what about emotional well being? Now he's under the shelter of his father. Similarly, Prabhupada says, we all are like this forgotten or the lost son of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who are wandering in this temporary place in search of permanent happiness. Happiness is a byproduct of love. Despite everything with us, if we are still lacking satisfaction and if we are still hankering for happiness in our life, is all because of lack of relationship. In other words, is all because of our disconnection from our Supreme Father. Once we revive our relationship with the Supreme Lord, that's the time all the problems ceases to exist. And not only this, the nature of love is to expand. And when this love expands, we begin to love every living entity. And second, the nature of spiritual love is you cannot see anyone suffering. The suffering of others becomes one suffering, and happiness of others becomes one happiness. Yesterday, somebody asked, what is a symptom of a saintly person, a genuine sadhu? The symptom of a saintly person or a genuine sadhu is he cannot see anyone suffering. When he sees somebody suffering, struggling with his life, he recognizes and he realizes all because this person is ignorant who is his real father. Therefore, the sadhu or a real saint goes out of his way, tries his best, accepts all the austerities he has to, just to bring the lost and forgotten son to his father. All of us today are sitting here because 50 years ago, similarly, one real saint, a great sadhu, left the comforts of Vrindavan at the age of 70, went abroad for the first time in his life where nobody knew him. He had no idea where would he eat, where would he live. All by himself and his faith in the instructions of his guru and faith and love for Lord Shri Krishna, he crossed the 7 oceans, came to America, and that was Srila Prabhupada, who single-handedly traveled 14 times all over the globe thereafter and established the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, the principles of Vedic culture and life, and brought about a universal transformation in the lives of so many. And that's the whole point. True happiness lies in reviving our love with the Supreme Lord. But question arises, how to put faith in Vedas? Can I put faith in Vedas? Because often it is considered when the subject matter of Vedas is discussed that accepting scriptures is like blind faith. So the question of science versus spirituality, we have a couple of minutes and we started 5 minutes late. If all of you are fine, can we continue our session up to 8:35? Is that okay from the audience? I can discuss on the subject matter of science versus spirituality also. Okay, thank you for your affirmation. Now, people say science means logic, science means experiment, spirituality means blind faith. Really? Let's look into the details. Science and spirituality. Science relies on our senses and mind, right? Ultimately, it's we who are creating things. Somebody has iPhone, Steve Jobs has given credit for it. Somebody is using Microsoft products, Bill Gates has given credit for it, isn't it? You're using Google Android system, some other human being is given credit for it. So all this thing that we do is a product of our senses and the mind. What about spirituality? Spirituality relies on the revealed scriptures, which are considered as word of God, just like Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, as I introduced Bhagavad Gita in the very first chapter, is the only literature in the whole world which have the directly spoken words of the Supreme Lord, not the words of a representative like that. So it is considered that science means facts. Generally, it is assumed like this: that science means facts and spirituality means faith. Are you sure? No, that's not the correct thing. Science does not mean facts always, and spirituality does not mean only faith. There are two commonalities between science and spirituality. The first commonality between science and spirituality is that both of them have faith as an essential prerequisite, which means even for science, we have to put faith in certain fundamental principles before we can build up on our science. All of you who are grown up would have probably heard of imaginary number. Imaginary number means which does not exist. That's the reason it's called as imaginary number, isn't it? And it's a foundational unit of all the mathematics that we do. Similarly, third law of thermodynamics, at perfect temperature of a perfect crystal and absolute zero, the entropy is zero, something like that as a principle. Well, these things doesn't exist at all. There's nothing called as absolute zero and perfect pressure and whatnot. Another example is of a point. In a geometry, a point is a non-dimensional entity. But when you draw multiple points and connect them together, it makes a line, where line becomes a dimensional entity, isn't it? That's the whole point about it. So there is no science without axioms. Axiom means self-evident truth. If we can accept axioms in science, then why can't we accept Vedic axioms? Which means we are not the body but spirit, soul, the existence of the Supreme Lord, and the things which are described in scriptures. Now, what is the difference, however, between the axioms in the science and axioms of spiritual subject matter? The axioms, which means the axiomatic truths, cannot be proven ever. However, the axioms or the axiomatic truth which are told to us in spiritual subject matter, once one takes to the practice of spiritual life, all that what has been taught can be realized after a certain period of time, where a person can realize the presence of the Lord. There are examples of people who have seen the Lord, spoken to the Lord face to face, where a person can realize it's not the body but the spiritual. But in science, we don't have that opportunity, which means science involves more faith even than spirituality. What is the second commonality? Is the pattern. What is a pattern in science and spirituality? Theory, experimentation, and conclusion. All of us know when we would study physics and chemistry, we'll study the theory, we go to the lab, we do the experimentation, and the result comes, we conclude whatever we studied in theory is factual. Similarly, in spirituality, there is a theory which is taught to us, which we're going to discuss in the future session. Who am I? Then there is an experimentation, the process, how to perform an experiment which can help us, give us the result. And finally, when we perform an experimentation, we get a conclusion. However, the field of experimentation is an individual here. When we take to spiritual science, we are supposed to practice in one's own life and undergo transformation and then come to the conclusion. So like this, science and spirituality both have two commonalities. They are not against, but they synergizes in this manner. So rest of the discussion will continue next, I'm not next week, I'm going to say tomorrow. I will pause here I'll do a quick recap of what we have discussed so far and give you a little sneak peek of what we're going to discuss tomorrow. So, what we discussed in today's session was that every living entity in this world is searching for happiness, be humans or animals. So, what are the commonalities between humans and animals? And the commonality is the SEED acronym, Aha Nidra Bhaya Mathinam. Then, what's the difference? The difference is A, B, C, D, ability to inquire, B for seek out for bliss, C for choice, D for determination. And then we discuss the four levels of bliss at bodily level, at emotional level, third, intellectual level, and fourth, the spiritual pleasure. Has this technological advancement really improved our living condition? All of you agreed the previous generation was far much more happier and content than the today's generation. Yes, the technological advancement have happened, but they have only improved the living condition on the bodily level, have not done anything for the emotional, intellectual, and the spiritual level of happiness. Rather, the today's society have deprived us entirely of these levels of happiness. Therefore, as a result, there are higher rates of divorces, suicides, and crimes in the society. The society have not become a better place to live, but rather a troubled place to live. So, question arises: How are we? How are we different than animals? We as humans are being provided with a higher intelligence, and the purpose of higher intelligence is to inquire. What to inquire? Why am I suffering? And Krishna describes about 7 kinds of suffering which are inevitable, unavoidable for all the living entities, and which is birth, death, old age, and disease. Adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika, klesha. Krishna does not only defines the problem but also gives a solution. But before we got into the solution Krishna provides, we raised a question: Can the scientific and the technological advancement liberate us from these 7 kinds of suffering which everyone have to face? And the answer was yes, but temporarily. When old age comes, when the hair becomes gray, they can only give you a hair dye, but they cannot help you or they cannot do anything to prevent the hairs growing white or gray like that. Person has to grow old, person has to fall sick. And today, the diseases are far much more greater, more in number than ever before. So technological advancement is not helping, it's just creating a patch-up solution and putting us under an illusion that we are making an advancement. So what is the solution? Krishna says the solution is to revive one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. Once one begins to experience spiritual pleasure, which is the highest, far greater than the bodily, emotional, and intellectual pleasure, then the person can very easily rise above the 7 kinds of suffering. And how to revive this relationship? I gave an example of the lost son of a billionaire, where a real saint and a sadhu goes out of his way to connect the disconnected or the lost son with eternal Father, our eternal Father. Therefore, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, who is the best of my devotee? Who is the dearmost to me? Krishna says, one who shares this message with others and helps them revive their relationship with the Supreme Lord is the dearmost to me. And that is the definition of real sadhu. Then the question came, how do we put faith in Vedas? Isn't accepting Vedas a blind faith? And the concluding part, we had a discussion about science versus spirituality. They're not at conflict with each other, rather they synergizes, and we describe 2 commonalities. First, they both have prerequisite faith. And second, the pattern. Both follow the same pattern: theory, experimentation, and conclusion. With that, we come to a conclusion of today's discussion. When we meet tomorrow, we are going to talk further on the subject matter of science versus spirituality. We are going to bring out the subject matter of evidences which are given in various scriptures, or the forecast or the foretold which have been told in various scriptures which have proven to be true. We're also going to speak about Vedic sciences tomorrow, some interesting subject matter and discussion. And the lastly, and the most important discussion would be, what are Vedic scriptures? How did this all came into manifestation? And related to this, all kinds of questions that people have, they've kind of compiled this into to be a 10 to 15 questions, We'll discuss that. And the last but not the least, but the most important subject matter, are Vedas mythology, wherein we're going to give you a contrary evidences to prove the Vedas are not mythology. Vedas are science, the original science, and we'll provide you 15 such evidences to you tomorrow for you to think yourself, is it ever possible to believe Vedic scriptures to be factual when you have such a great amount of science and evidences present? With that, we come to the conclusion. We sincerely thank you for joining us for today evening, despite being Monday. Sincerely grateful to all of you for joining us. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Back to the host if there are any questions. And as usual, as I make a request at the end of every session, if our audience is comfortable, it'll be nice to see who all are present in the session. Whom am I speaking? So if you like, you may switch on your camera so at least I know, am I speaking to young kids, college students, or the old man, and who? Thank you. So, Shikhar Prabhu, we can also do one thing because I like to have interaction with the audience. You can even allow the audience to ask a question themselves. So at least I get to know, who's asking the question that way. So if you want to read, you can
Sure,
read
Prabhu.
out. And if people want to ask, they can raise their hand. Any of the hosts, Vishnukan or Shikhar, can give them the rights. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, so I think a wonderful session, Prabhuji. We can have the audience unmuted and then they can ask the questions. I've compiled the questions already. What we can do, I'll just read out, and the person for which I'm asking the question, he can switch on the camera and he can add or subtract.
Okay, so do read out the names so I know who's asking. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So the first one is from Shantanu Kaushik ji.
Okay, I see Shantanu.
Shantanu Kaushik, can you come on the camera?
I see him on screen, yes.
Okay. So his question is, why we came away from our Father, who is Supreme Personality of God?
Yeah, a brilliant question. Why did we came away? Why did we, how did this relationship got broken? To give you a very simple example, I believe all of us would have experienced while growing up also. Generally kids are naughty and haughty and arrogant sometimes. When they decide something, how much the parents tell them to not to do it, they still become very adamant about it. Have you experienced this sometime? Father says, don't do this. No, 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 I would do this. And some kids are so naughty, whatever you say, they do it always against of it. So when a person makes up his mind that I want to do it, Krishna, we're going to discuss this ahead in a dedicated session. Krishna does not interfere in the free will of a living entity. Because to interfere in the free will does not, it just doesn't, it just implies that we have no existence then. As an individual, we should have a right to choose for ourselves, and that freedom is given to us. So when an individual decides to walk away, Krishna gives him the freedom. Yet, Lord is so kind, so merciful, and so loving. Even when we turn our face and are walking away from Him, He still does not give up on us, and He still continues to walk behind us, life after life, birth after birth, in the form of a Paramatma, wherein the Paramatma continues to accompany the Atma in different species of life, waiting for an opportunity when this living entity would turn his or her face towards the Paramatma, turn back and see that his loving father and mother is always walking behind him, just waiting for an opportunity when he or she would ever recognize that, yes, my loving father is there for me. So until we realize Krishna continues to be with us, this philosophical and technical point we'll discuss more ahead. How we came? Answer is we made a choice. We became envious, agnostic, and we became determined to do it. And Krishna said, so be it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The next question is from Pooja ji. She is asking, how does God Krishna as our Father come after us? Hope we want us to come back to Him, though we may not be a good kid.
Sorry, I missed out. Who is asked?
It's Pooja ji. Pooja S.
Okay. Now, what's the question?
How does Krishna as father come after us? Hope he wants us to come back to him, though we may not be a good kid.
Is that a question? It's just a comment. I hear it as a comment.
It's a
Oh,
question.
Krishna wants us to come back to us, come back to him, like that.
Yeah, the first question is like, why Krishna come to us?
Why Krishna come to us?
Yeah, during Dwapar Yuga.
During Dwapar, why did Krishna came? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam svajamyam. Whenever there's a decline in religion, increase in a religion, Krishna says, I appear millennium after millennium. Krishna says it and defines it that I appear, but I appear according to my own will. Whenever I decide, I appear to establish dharma, to protect the saintly, and to punish the miscreants. If that was a question, and that's the answer. If question was different, Pooja, if you're still online, you can unmute and ask yourself what I kind of understood, I answered. Our audience have the right to unmute themselves?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Pooja here. Thank you for unmuting me. So my question was more related to the fact that Hope Krishna will still stand by us and still want us to come back, even though we may not be a good kid.
Oh yes, don't worry about it. More than Krishna, devotees would want to. And don't worry, devotees will chase after you that you go back to Godhead. I mean, when you understand this more, understand the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita more, your heart will be filled with so much gratitude and love and affection for the Lord, what Lord have done to us, and how we have misbehaved with Him, how ungrateful we had been with Him life after life, for not even once paying attention. Every morning we get up, no one here can take credit that I am responsible for seeing the next morning, tomorrow morning sunrise. So many people go to bed but do not wake up in the morning. They die or they pass away from this world. No guarantee when a person goes off to bed will wake up. We waking up is not our ability, it's a gift of the Lord. That's the reason the present moment that we have is called as a present. Another meaning for the present is a gift. The present moment is called as a present because it is a gift of the Lord, an opportunity, one more opportunity for us to remember how kind and loving the Lord is. Interestingly, in English, it is called as a present, the current moment that we have. The question is, are we willing to remember the Lord? Hare Krishna. All right, Pooja.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Shekhar Prabhu.
Yeah, there's one more from Kiran Malhotra. It's not a specific question, but she's asking if Prabhuji, could you please explain emotion intelligence again? Intelligence emotions.
Emotional happiness and intellectual happiness. Is that the question, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Because emotional intelligence is a different subject. I didn't touch upon that.
She writed emotional intelligence, Prabhuji. Maybe she mean by the emotional happiness.
Maybe if
I
she's
can ask her to unmute and then
is good.
Kiran, if you're still there, can you please raise the hand?
Yeah, she just wrote, she or he just wrote, emotional happiness. Emotional happiness arises from good relationships, loving relationships. That is what emotional happiness, the satisfaction of the mind. The hankering for happiness comes, or which is the byproduct of love. So when you have good relationship, you feel our emotional relationship, the give and take of emotions are satisfied. That is what it means by emotional happiness. Where people do not have good relationship. To give an example, there was a recent statistic that came almost sometime before this whole COVID period started, and it was statistics of UK, the teenagers of UK. A very interesting statistic, and it said in just 5 years, the level of depression and the stress and emotional anxiety that has gripped over the teenagers of UK is unprecedented. It's never been seen in the history how these teenagers of this country are feeling so lonely and deprived of any kind of relationships. And the foremost reason was because people today have become glued to social media, which is a virtual world. And everyone is pretending to show oneself to be the most happiest person in the world, isn't it? Everyone smiles, clicks a photo, and then goes back into their routine life. And God only knows what is the routine life is, So there is a stiff competition to prove to others, I am the happiest person. I go to the best of the locations in my life, and they make virtual friends where they have no real friends and interactions ever. Because of which, so this emotional happiness is not fulfilled, and there are higher rates of depressions and anxieties amongst the teenagers. And the second interesting part of the statistics was prior to this, 5 years before, the senior citizens had the highest rate of depression and emotional anxiety. But now, 5 years later, teenagers were experiencing far greater than even the senior citizens. Those of you know of the Western culture, senior citizens are left to live on their own. There's no family culture and unit. And most of them spend their final years in the old age homes, far away from their relatives, brothers, son, and sister, like that. That's what emotional happiness, which arises from relationships, good relationships. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's one more from Tarun Rathore. He is asking why Krishna is only considered the eternal father. Why not Brahma, not Shiva, or nor any other god? Prabhuji, am I audible? Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Hare Krishna, Shekhar Prabhu. Prabhuji is joining back. Just a moment.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible? Okay.
You're
So
audible
I'm
now,
back
Prabhuji.
from the different system now. I need to have a speaker on so I can hear. Okay. Sorry, there was a little technical glitch again. So the person who had asked this question, we'll address this question in the topic called as one God versus many gods. And then we'll talk about who Krishna, who is Brahma, who is Lord Shiva, all those things.
Yes, Prabhu.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhu.
What's next?
There are a few more questions coming up, Prabhuji. At this point, do you want to go ahead or we want to end the session? We're already at 8. And probably we can take it later. Prabhuji, I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Am I audible now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So we can take and then conclude that way. Fine. And Shikha, from next time onward, we can have it where people can write in their question also. And if they want, they can ask directly. That helps me to reply properly. So please go ahead with the questions that you have. We conclude with that.
Okay. I think there's one question from Kiran again. Prabhuji, I had a question from first session. We don't have a choice when it comes to certain facets of life. For instance, life, death, gender we are born with. How do we place society and gender reassignment surgery then?
Okay, I missed out the question. I got the question that we don't have certain choices with the gender and things like that. Okay, I can see the question there. I had a question from the first session. We don't have a choice when it comes to certain phases of life. Instance, life, death, gender, we are born with. How do we place society and gender reassignment surgery then? Are you saying that, the change of gender and a person committing suicide, actually they are punishable acts? You can ask this question to me in the next session when we talk about who am I. then I'll give you quite a lot ghost stories. What happens to people who commit suicides? You know, first of all, let's put faith in Vedic scriptures. I can tell you what happens. So this is the certain things which are inappropriate, which should not be done. You know, I mean, even in this world, think about it. You know, just like when you go out, you don't accept a sweet or any food item from a person walking on a street, any strange person, isn't it? You're very cautious about it. Who knows what this person is, what he's put in the food item? That's the whole thing. We don't know from where it's coming. And when we do so, there are reactions involved in it. Similarly, these are not the things which scriptures allows that way. All right, Kiran? We'll take
Prabhuji,
the
so I'm just sharing the link.
Yeah, Shikhar, go ahead. I'll just see what
No,
Srinath
I'm
is
just
writing.
saying that I'm sharing the link of Google form. So we can take the questions in the Google form and then probably you can answer them tomorrow.
Okay, Srinath, astrology also being born from Veda is just a mean of making money in this. And now it is used to make people more scared than doing good. Come on, Srinath, you can't blame astrology. You should blame the news channels and the doctors for scaring you out. They scare you more out than the astrologers, isn't it? I don't know which astrology you're talking about. Maybe you had one bad experience with some astrologer. But I feel people who does the most fear mongering are the news anchors, the print media, and the online media, isn't it? I don't know why you're chasing after the poor astrologers. Well, let's talk about astrology briefly. Astrology is a science, but astrology is not about fortune telling or the future telling. That is only 5% of what astrology is. The science of astrology means to understand the time and what to do in a given point of time. At different times of the day, there are different activities are prescribed. And to have a proper understanding is what the science of astrology is. And only 5 and 10% of this whole astrology, the field of astrology, is focused about future telling. Now, coming about the present day and time, where you say the astrologers are minting money, well, this is a very unfortunate state. I do agree. But who is not cheating people? Today, the world is of the cheaters and cheated. We already discussed yesterday, there are 4 defects in every living entity, and one of the defects is to cheat others. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, this has become very, very prominent. And today, people even do not trust visiting a doctor. I hope you all know what it means. People were so scared when they felt sick. I know so many people, they just didn't want to go and get their corona test. They were so worried that these doctors would put them into a hospital and would give them an expensive bill and whatnot. So unfortunately, that's the situation around. So fine, I guess it's getting late. All of you would have your things to attend. Shikhar Prabhu will share the Google form. And Shikhar Prabhu, we can make it maybe tomorrow. If in case I'm unable to answer the questions until tomorrow, we can take this question which they put into the Google form. All right?
Sure,
you have the access. You can read out from there also.
Correct.
I'll just read out this last point and conclude for today. Vedas are described so many amazing things are humans with extraordinary capabilities, interplanetary travels without any machines, and extraterrestrial beings visited our planet regularly, which you don't see to happen nowadays. Then how should we understand that such things are reality when today we don't get any of its evidence? You know what evidence you're asking? You're going back to Pratyaksha Praman. Yes, Sachin? Unless I see, I would not believe. If I don't see interplanetary travel, I would not put faith in. We already discussed about the flaws in the, this Pratyaksha and Anuman Praman. We'll take this question tomorrow when we talk about it. Then if you're not convinced, we can discuss this tomorrow more. So with that, thank you all for joining in. And yes, you can connect back with Shikhar Prabhu with whatever questions are there, either with Mother Dipasha or Shikhar. And we'll hopefully see you tomorrow. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Srirang, I saw your question. I'll get back to you offline, okay? I'll send you a voice note in the sometime. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Srirang, you send me a WhatsApp about it. I'll reply to you immediately, okay? Yes.